places me in a perfect position to not just imagine, but know firsthand how it feels to be a surrogate. My experience has given me a passion for promoting ethical practices which extend beyond my board positions. As the SEEDS Education Committee Chair, I host 2 conferences a year and create continuing education programs for all assisted reproductive professionals, including IVF clinics, mental health professionals, attorneys, and escrow companies. I also host a monthly webinar for reproductive professionals, and I created continuing education modules in an online learning portal for professionals so they could stay at the forefront of ethical practices even during the COVID outbreak. I own a variety of businesses and have a decade of business consulting experience. I have successfully navigated the international business landscape. My strategic investments in the healthcare industry have not only driven growth, but also provided guidance to businesses seeking strategic direction. In 2019, I was invited to Uganda by the Office of the President to explore investment opportunities in the healthcare sector. I was honored to meet His Royal Highness the Chabazinga. I participated in the naming ceremony and was adopted into his clan in the Busoga tribe and was given a new name, Muchala Florence. I immediately fell in love with the country, the culture, the people, and the food. I am in awe of His Excellency the President's dedication to the representation and empowerment of Ugandan women, an acknowledgement that women's health is a women's issue, and that women parliamentarians like the Honorable Saria Opendi and others can present such an important bill as this, and we can be here discussing it today, is truly impressive. In many other countries, including my own in America and in the UK, women do not have anyone dedicated to address and speak for women's issues in government. And often, the narrative and resistance from men can derail important women's issues. I am truly grateful for the opportunity to speak with the committee today. This bill has the opportunity to not only impact the lives of infertile women, but fertile women as well. This law, with the edits I have suggested, will protect all parties and will be a beacon to the world, showing that Uganda understands and acknowledges the power and unique nature of women. When I came to Uganda in November 2020, I met with hospitals, doctors, midwives, mental health professionals, attorneys, the URA, and even the Interreligious Council. I listened to their voices and the perspectives of all the stakeholders, and I created an ethical program that fits the culture of Uganda. I have created a pioneering skilling program for female entrepreneurs in Uganda. Through this program, we provide essential skills in business planning, financial literacy, strategic development, which in turn is driving economic independence and fostering gender equality in entrepreneurship. Our surrogates have a business plan and savings plan prior to matching with their intended parents, and their compensation is used as startup capital or expansion capital for their existing business. We also provide guidance to their business throughout the first year. Honorable Chair, if you will bear with me, let me address some common misconceptions about surrogacy. The number one fear that I have heard about surrogacy in Uganda is that the homosexual community will come to Uganda if this bill is passed. I can tell you that the gays will not come to Uganda because surrogacy is legal. Uganda has made their position on the LGBTQ community very clear, and therefore that group will choose other countries where the culture accepts them. So who will choose Uganda for surrogacy? 1 in 6 adults globally struggle with infertility. Most clients are married couples and single women. Uganda is 60% women, and single women can also struggle with the ability to have a baby. Access to reproductive options allows them to follow their religious views or address their medical issue and still become a mother. In China, due to the years of the one-child policy, there's a shortage of women. Every child is obligated to provide their parents with a baby because in that culture, it is the grandparents that are dedicated to the raising of the children. Surrogacy allows the dutiful son to fulfill his obligation to his parents so they can have a family. There are 877 million people that struggle with infertility globally. There are approximately 50,000 intended parents looking to begin a surrogacy cycle each year, and this number is growing as infertility rates are coming closer to 1 in 3 adults struggling with infertility. A few years ago, a woman named Padma became a surrogate in India. She left her children with family and moved to the hospital for the duration of the surrogacy process. She was not allowed to see her family or leave the hospital until after delivery. She did not have any contact with the couple she cared for, so she sat around with other surrogates during the pregnancy. The hospital staff controlled the food she ate, her activities, and kept her on hospital property. Padma signed an agreement with the hospital, but there was no legal contract. Often, the hospital would not give her the payment she was due. Sometimes, the hospital even required her to sign that she received money when she did not. Padma had no one she could talk to, no advocate, and no legal recourse because she did not have any attorney or anyone to represent her. There was no legally binding contract, so she could not pursue any legal action to get the money owed to her. When it was time for delivery, she was put to sleep and given a C-section. She awoke not pregnant, given some money, and sent home. She never saw the parents hold their baby for the first time. She didn't know if the baby would be loved or if she had been used to just create a baby for some nefarious purpose. It is stories like these that lead people to think that surrogacy is exploiting women. Luckily, with my additions to the bill, this exploitation is prevented. Ugandan women from these scenarios, they cannot happen. With these protections, surrogacy is a wonderful and powerful gift. The potential for social and economic impact is enormous. As of February of this year, according to IOM, the International Organization of Migration, 220,000 Ugandans have left Uganda to seek employment abroad. Many of these are women seeking a way to support their families. Many arrive only to find that the jobs they were promised did not even exist, or they are allegedly abused or mistreated. I am not against migration or exporting labor, but I would like more options for Ugandan families to stay together, because a united family is a united nation. By adding my suggestions to the bill, not only will some women have the opportunity to stay at home and raise their family while they earn an income, but the protections also create jobs for other educated Ugandans. Attorneys will have more work. Social workers will have more work. Nurses will have more work. Surrogacy agencies will hire office workers and coordinators who all have more work. For example, the surrogacy market size was worth $13.27 billion in 2022 and is predicted to grow to around $61.45 billion by 2030, with a compound annual growth rate of roughly 21.46%, according to internationally recognized Zion Market Research Company. Ukraine, prior to the war, had 3,000 surrogacy cases a year. Can you imagine the additional jobs created at hospitals, tourism, hotels, law offices, social workers, nurses, and many others, as this many cases bring their money to Uganda? The tax implications are staggering and will impact the national budget, and all of Uganda will feel the improvements from this bill. It is not often that one bill can make such a difference, but if this law has the ethical standards I have suggested, Uganda will become the benchmark for the entire world. In the Bible, surrogacy was an accepted way for women to have children when struggling with infertility. It was used by the prophet Muhammad in Genesis 16 and 25, and the prophet Jacob in Genesis 30. It has only been in recent years that the narrative has changed because of misinformation and unethical practices in some parts of the world. The solution is not to ban surrogacy, but to install proper ethical practices. Some people say that it is unethical to have a contract for a relationship, but marriage is a contractual relationship, so is employment. Both can have bad results if proper ethical practices are not followed. It's the same for surrogacy. Just as we do not say that marriage is bad because some men beat their women or women beat their men, and employment is not bad because some employers do not pay their employees or do not provide adequate working conditions, so it is with surrogacy. If proper standards and practices are required, surrogacy is an empowering relationship for all parties, each helping the other to achieve their dreams. When I spoke to the members of the Ugandan Muslim Supreme Council in 2020, they likened surrogacy to a wet nurse. In the Muslim religion, wet nurses are allowed, but there are rules. The wet nurse's children cannot marry the children of the family she nursed because they are now like siblings. As written in Surah An-Nisa Ayat 23, also forbidden to you for marriage are your milk mothers who nursed you, your sisters through nursing. This can easily be addressed by a relationship between the parents and the surrogate. The desire to be a mother is an inherent being in a woman, and all women have the right to be included in this bill so they can access the ability to become a mother. Honorable Chair, with your permission, I would like to transition to my input for the bill for your possible consideration. There's some confusion. Some people think that if you do not get paid, then you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. Any woman that has been pregnant can tell you it is not a simple thing. That is a big task to take on. And there isn't any amount of money that could truly compensate for that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 9 months and delivery. So by paying the surrogate for her time and attention and for making the changes in her life necessary, for example, not riding a boda because it's not safe, things like that, it's showing your appreciation. It's not making this a commercial transaction. It's just showing appreciation so that both sides benefit. Because if you do not pay your surrogate anything, that is where you're starting to take advantage of that surrogate and her kind nature. Because now she is only losing. There's wear and tear on her body, or emotional, there's impacts to her family because she's tired and can't provide all her normal things that she does during the day. I think that it's fair to pay a surrogate. It's not making it a transaction because it's too emotional on both sides. In my experience, surrogates get attached to the intended parents, not attached to the baby, but to the intended parents. Your sole purpose in doing this is to see their faces when they hold that baby for the first time. And it's only fair that she get compensated for that. Even the URA acknowledged that when I spoke with them and set a special tax rate that's lower. It's only 6% because it acknowledges the altruistic nature of this, but it's also acknowledging that they're getting compensated, so of course they want their piece. But because of the way that we have set it up with the escrow doing the withholding, it eliminates any possible issues where someone might not be getting their funds, the URA might not be getting all of those types of things. It eliminates that. So it's very clear. The parents can see exactly what the surrogate is paid, and her tax liability is paid directly. So personally, I feel that by creating this system, that is what creates the protections for everyone. There's been a lot of talk about the attorneys. So the attorney, instead of it being like an NGO, like a justice center, where she goes in and maybe talks to a different person each time and gets advice, what we're advocating for is that she, for the entire journey, has a person that is an attorney, a Ugandan attorney, that can help advocate for her, that it's their job to make sure that she fully understands that contract, all 41 pages. That's their job, is to advocate for her. So she will always have somebody that is their only job, is to represent and advocate for her. In regards to the coordination aspect, That is the job of the agencies. So they're going to help coordinate with all of the professionals. So the fertility center, the social workers that can make sure that her social and emotional needs are addressed and handled. They're there to talk. And this takes education to make sure that everybody is prepared to be able to address these needs. But if you do it correctly, it's a very smooth process. And we're not creating any new issues, we're actually eliminating them, because we've worked on surrogacy bills in different states, the United States, and in different countries. And I have seen the problems when countries say, oh, that's not needed. And then they come back and because they have a problem later. So addressing these issues now, proactively, is what's going to make sure that things don't happen. There aren't any issues. In regards to just having an agreement with the hospital, the problem is there's a conflict of interest there. Who does the hospital represent? So if the surrogate has an agreement with only the hospital, is the hospital looking out for them? Okay, it's the hospital that's telling them right now that they have to have a mandatory C-section because they can charge more money to the parents, and it takes the doctors less time. So I would say that the hospitals are not looking out for the surrogates because that's not their job. They have other interests to weigh. But if that surrogate has her own attorney whose sole job is to make sure that they understand everything in that 41 pages. If they have any questions along the way, they have one person to call. They know exactly who to contact. And there's legal recourse should anyone start to misbehave. That's what that attorney is for, the whole thing. And the intended parents are the ones that pay for that surrogate. So for that attorney. So she is not having to go and find somebody and try and convince them to help her. From the very beginning, she has an advocate, and then you have the agency that is also balancing the needs of both, but making sure that everything goes smoothly. It's part of the importance of making sure it's not solely run by one business, because you need the input, because it impacts so many different areas. Regarding the gestational surrogacy versus the biological, my personal feeling is that when the surrogate is the donor, it can create legal issues, concept of parentage and the rights to her child, and whose child it is. Because if you know that this is biologically your child, it is still biologically your child. And so it can create a conflict. Whereas if it's not biologically your child, it's the biological child of the intended parents. And if they need a donor, then they get a donor for whatever the medical issue is. It's always been their baby. From before you ever get pregnant, it is their baby. And as a surrogate, I can tell you that the goal to surrogacy is actually that seeing those parents hold that baby. I was very happy when all 6 of my children were born. I was thrilled. I also did not have a hard time getting pregnant with any of them. But when you see that couple holding their baby that they have been trying for years, they have struggled trying to get pregnant themselves, they've gone through their own fertility treatments, all of these things, they finally get to surrogacy, and now that dream has become a reality. You don't ever regret it, not ever. It's amazing.
Chair, I have a question too. Thank you. I want to know from Lisa, have you ever been a surrogate mother or twice?
Twice. I carried a set of twins and a single baby.
Congratulations.
C-section, a cesarean section, 3 months.
3 months.
Let's see. Oh, regarding the singles and the LGBT. So there have been many countries that have tried to word their law in a way to keep the LGBTQI community out. And I can tell you, just by saying couples, singles, that won't have any impact. What will have an impact are background checks and psychological evaluations. Those will have an impact, and that eliminates that need. There are a lot of single mothers especially. The reason why I included just single people in general was mostly because of the issue in China. So we have seen that where there's a shortage of women. There's still a family group that they are still raising that child in because they have their parents and then the Chinese father, then they have a child. So it's still a family group, a family unit that they're raising that child in. So sometimes there is that need.
Can you just clarify? You said family unit. Where does that come in? You have the single person. So where is the father?
And their parents.
The parents to that single.
Yes. So in the Chinese culture, it is the grandparents that their job is to raise the children. So from that marriage. So even if it's a full couple, it's still the grandparents that take care of all of the day-to-day needs of the child, and the parents are working a lot. So, but the grandparents are there every single day, doing all of the things with them. That's how their culture is. So it's still a family unit that they're being raised in. And there's just that issue there in China. In other parts of the world, and even in Uganda, there are women that choose, that can financially, they still have a big family, extended family unit that they're raising a child in, but they still have there are lots of single mothers in Uganda. But those that would be choosing surrogacy don't have any financial restrictions to the taking care of that baby, because it's whatever their medical issue is that is taking them to that avenue in order to be a mother, that we're just saying it should be available to them. It doesn't mean that there isn't an extended family that they're being raised in, that they're alone. It's a larger, a child is for more than just the parents.
Chair, thank you. I would attend to the last bits of your questions. Let me start with your justified worry, Chair.
Any authority as the parent. Then we have a donor sibling registry, so that if the siblings want to get to know their other biological members, they can do that, or get to know more about their donor. But it's a very clear separation between who has the authority to be your parent, which is the person that raised you, and the person that just helped make that pregnancy come to be. And so that's how that is addressed. It's just separate relationships, and that's been going on, for decades, without any issue. In fact, the biggest issue is when the children are not told, and then there's no access. And so that's why the donor sibling registry was created, so that then if they want access, fine. If they don't, that's fine as well. But the information is there, and a lot of religions feel that a child has the right to know their biologically where they come from, and so then that information is available to them should they want it.
Thank you so much.